things. Today's topic seems to be casting pewter.
Casting pewter, how fun.
Casting pewter comes in ingots like that. Melts in the 500 to 600 degree range in the F scale, or the 300 to 350. Hi, Ned. 300 to 350 Celsius scale. That's my furnace that'll be kicking off and on. I have done it with a little steel pot and a propane torch. It's easy to get to the temperature you need. This just keeps a lot more metal uniformly available. You can't just say, I want one of those and pour the metal. You gotta make a mold, something to pour the metal into. So Rowan, I'm gonna watch you, okay? If you're nodding your head and saying, I got this, I'm gonna go on, all right?
Okay.
Okay? Because we know we've got experience over here. I suspect we've seen this before over here. And I know these two, they'll catch on real quick. So you're my, shall we say, canary in the coal mine. And when your eyes start to glaze over, I've talked way too long. So first thing you gotta do is, what do I want? Here are some examples. There is a die. I did not make any of these over here. These are, I'm in a group that studies Middle Ages and Renaissance history called the Society for Creative Anachronism.
All right, right.
SCA for short. And so most of these are based on historic things. These are belt ends. Scooch chairs on up close so you can see better. I'm not gonna bite. So a lot of these are tokens for, hey, you paid your fee to come into the event, and you can pick them up. I don't care. So that's a belt end. This is there's another belt end here. Where to go? There's a belt end. So get riveted on the end or sewn on to make a little bit of a decoration. This particular one is a two-part. They did the casting, the silver part, the pewter, and then they cast little tabs on it that could be folded over the copper disc to give it some decoration. So you need to have a mold. First thing that I learned to mold in was soapstone. This is a couple pieces of soapstone. It's the same thing. Back east they make sinks out of it. Way back in the day they used to cut pieces of it, put it together. A lot of old science labs were soapstone countertops and soapstone sinks. So they cut the slabs and glued them together. It is engravable simply by scraping. I can work it away. So the first set of tools that I used were an old screwdriver and a needle file and a pin. And you just kind of say, what do I want it to be? And start scraping. Take away. So I was asked if in Mongolian culture, in the SCA we have king and queen. They have a persona. We had a king and queen doing Mongol persona. And in the Mongolian culture, the king could issue a payatsy. It was essentially a passport that said, I'm the king, I'm the Khan, this is so and so, and they can go wherever they want. So they contacted me and said, could you make something? Now, the real ones are much bigger, but could you make something that carries that idea? So, that was the idea. Do a little bit of drawing. Okay, now I have to start carving. So, I did the general outline, and then because I wanted the things to stand up on the surface, then I carved down into this surface. You can sand it, you can do all those things that you would do with wood. So if you feel in there, that's pretty smooth. And then to do the other side, I went ahead and pinned it so that every time it goes together, every time it goes together, it registers and locks in the same spot. Some of my molds don't do that, and I'll show you what happens here when you do that. But that way I can put it together, pour the metal in, and the cool part about pewter is I can pour it let it cool a little bit and check it to see if it did what I wanted it to do. It is. So we're at you can get there with your stove at home on max. It'll still be a little bit slushy because it's not quite hot enough, but yeah, it's pretty easy to get to the right temperatures. So you can literally work on it, pour it, check it, say, nope, I need to change that, make it a little deeper. You can't add back in, but you can sneak up to what you want. Now you'll notice that this one has an error across the middle there, because after I poured the 1,000 of these that I needed, this was sitting on my countertop. 6 months later, I banged it off the counter and it broke, and soapstone is not all that strong, so it cracked. I just epoxied the pieces together this morning so they at least all stay in the same spot. I won't produce this mold again for anything. That was a one-shot event, and if you're done with your sample, it can go back in there. So soapstone molds, pretty easy to make. You can order soapstone on Amazon, will bring it to you. You can get some really coarse stuff, but this is fairly fine. And you can stack molds. So those are 3 molds, all on the same. Oh wait, there's one over there.
And just with a flat back on those?
So these 2 I can do with, so I would do those with flat back,
Gotcha.
Flat back there. It's a little bit of a spot, and a little bit of a funnel here to pour the pewter in. One of the boys made these. There for a while I was doing some coining, whole different metal manipulation thing, where you engrave stuff in the end of a piece of a steel rod, and then you drive. So I needed some blanks. That's what that was for, to give me basically just a round slug of pewter. Give me a round slug. Hi, come on in. We can scooch over and around and through. So that I had coin blanks to do coins. So these are one-sided. This piece, if you look on this one, you see the hatching on there. Sometimes you get air trapped in there, and then the pewter can't run all the way in. So this leaves little spots for the air to run, and it just does, like on the back, like there. If you look at the back of that one, see that one's all cross-hatched? Just to let the air out. All right, let me pour this one real quick. Let's see what happens. Boom. Got the sprue. This part's called the sprue. Got the sprue off. I'm gonna let it sit on there so it'll cool just for a second. And it should be ready to handle.
Wow. Seems like the hardest part is just making the mold.
Bingo. The hardest part is making the mold. That's the investment, whether it's time or money or both. that's the investment until you start buying large quantities of metal. But that's, you know, we were discussing that. I did not look up the price of this ingot, but sounds like David says it's gone way, way, way high, so I'm going with it. So, okay, soapstone. Approachable. If you make a mistake, you've just invested a couple hours of scratching at it and thinking backwards. It's that thinking, what shape do I want this to end up? This one, the king and queen that I made these for, won another tournament a couple years later and came back and said, can you make another one, but make it different? So I found a historical example of a round one, and that's what, so this is a model. I carved this in walnut. Yeah. Here was the time, was making the original. Got the sprue already on there. This section on here I wanted built up a little bit. I actually ended up doing it, I think I did it in cardboard. Carved it pretty well and then soaked it with super glue so I could come back and have close, and then have something that I could, so. And the squarey letters and things on there are their names in some sort of a, they just handed me a drawing and said, here, okay, good, I'll go with that. You know, I said basically king and queen and their names. Because I decided to do it that way, I can't force that into the soapstone. So this is a silicone mold. This is nice stuff. This is an expensive way to go, but it does really, really good reproductions of, and multiples. So this is that same thing, only poured in a silicone mold. And you notice it's all jaggedy. I cut it that way on purpose. That way, when the pieces of the mold go back together, it keys in and aligns. I'll pass that around, and I'm going to pour this one real quick. And I found, in trying to hold these together, these little silly little things you don't realize, trying to hold this together so that it didn't leak out the edges, I found that I squeezed the part that I was trying to cast. So I had learned that. It also gives my fingers, I've got gloves here, but I tend to work with no gloves. It gives my fingers another little space where I'm not quite as close to the metal. Now, this is the same temperature as the rock, but it does not suck the temperature out near as fast. You can see this is still molten on the top. You also see that it's shrinking down in. The metal contracts, and by having metal up in here, it pulls down into the casting rather than leaving a hole in the casting where it shrunk away from the sides. So I had 2 of these molds that I made because, again, I needed about 800 to 1,000 of those. So I could cast one, and while it was cooling, I was clearing out the other mold and getting ready to cast it. And this is me being frugal. I did this one and realized I don't need anywhere near that much rubber, so I made a smaller mold to redo the next one. So that's rubber. This is another, this is Chasing and Repoussé. That's a sterling silver disc that I used tools to push, little chisels to push the metal back and forth to get that shape. That's over an hour's worth of work in that one little piece right there. What do I do if I want to make more? Hi, Mary. You can slide you in. Come on over here. There's room. So that's a mold that I actually did when I had extra from pouring this. It was like, oh, okay, I've overshot how much. I may as well just make something out of it. Is that cool enough to handle?
It's still a bit hot.
It's still a bit warm. Yeah. Let's get the sprue off of there. Now, that'll cool quicker on there. So you can take a mold, something, and then the third way of molding that I have is using sand casting. And then you'll be done. Get this stuff. Have you done any of this, Dave? Aha, this is the fun stuff. This is production. I need 500, 800 of those. I don't remember exactly what the number was. I'm not going to do this. But this is if I want one or a limited run of something. I can do undercuts in this if something goes in, or because the rubber will flow around it, then I can cut down to it and it will release. So and then once this has metal poured in it, this will stretch enough to come off of undercuts. With this, I can't have any undercuts. I went casting about for something to do, and this was laying on my bench. That's sterling silver that one of the boys was working on 20 plus years ago. It didn't cast properly. He probably did this one as a lost wax casting, but it didn't fill, it didn't cast properly. So there's some problems. Let's do a pewter knife. I can't do it this way because there's an undercut under the chin. A lot of times if you look on things, you will find the mold marks, because somebody, to make this for the chess company, somebody had to do the mold, and there is a mold mark that runs right here, right along the main, all along the front. So that tells me everything releases this way. So that's what I'm aiming for. This is called Delft clay. Sometimes they'll call it green sand. Acme Foundry down in Coffeyville uses this by the ton, or something very similar to this. As I was playing with it, okay, so this is a two-part flask. I put the face, the inside face down, and I start filling with clay. And what we're going to do here is we're just gonna pack it in. Pack it in. I'm trying to form a solid base that I can work from. Put some more in. Pack it in. As I was playing with this morning, it struck me this is like kinetic sand. The kids' toy, kinetic sand. Sure, Ron, you've never played with any of that.
Mm-hmm.
It's called green clay?
Green sand.
Green sand.
It's sand, clay, and binders of some sort. In the simplest form, the binder is water. Then there are a whole lot of different. This particular stuff, this is called Delft clay. Delft clay. Nancy whined a little bit when she was ordering it for my Christmas present. She said, "Really? Yeah, that's the stuff, and that's what the stuff costs." But now I've got it. So we're going to cut this off. Back over here, fill in. I've got a low spot, low spot, low spot there. What I need is a solid chunk of sand in there. It's back in my supply. Alright, so there's the inside of our mold. I'm going to take chest piece. Which way am I going with this, Ron?
The side needs to be pointed up.
Okay, I was curious how you were going to say that, because sometimes just figuring out how are we going to say the thing. Now the next question is, so this orientation.
Orientation.
Ooh. All right, now, what way do you think I should do this way with I'm going to be pouring metal in here? So you got to decide, where do I want my sprue to go in? Where do I want to cut it off? Essentially comes down to what's the easiest surface to clean up that will let the metal flow in. Once it ends up and I'm pouring it this way, you see that how it comes up a little bit for the chin? This isn't very much up. I will try to make sure that there is a vent there, so when the metal comes down, it can flow up into that space. So I'm going to put it this way, so I'm shooting metal right into the base. I think I'm going to turn it this way. That takes away from some of, let me go ahead and press this in here. And I'm trying to press it down so that
Can you vent to the side or only to the top?
I can vent right through the side.
Okay.
So I'm trying to get to that midline, and I'm finding that I may have overachieved on the packing, because it's not wanting to let me get that in. I'm seeing right here, see the shadow right above the head there? I've got a little bit of a void where when it went in, it pushed the clay back. I'm gonna try. I'm new to this particular too, so I'm gonna try. Fill that in, make sure it's where it needs to be, and that it releases cleanly. Little pick right here to just cut it down right to that parting line. So I'm recreating the parting line. I want my mold to come apart there. Now, the release agent, otherwise when I put more clay on top, it's going to stick to this.
Yeah.
That would be less than positive experience. So, talcum powder just gives it a little bit of a release and helps the mold come apart at that point. Set the other half on and put some over the top. Try not to disturb the pattern. Compact that a little bit right around the pattern. Now you can see, if I was pouring those, I'd be 20 or 30 down the road. But if I'm just trying to copy one automobile part or something, then this lets me get to one in a hurry. This stuff will take pewter, no problem. It will also take silver and gold. The higher temperature in the 1,000 degree range stuff. It does burn a little bit. You just take that burnt section and use it for this outside coarse filling stuff. There's a soft spot there.
So the pewter is a 3 and 4?
The pewter's at well, there you go. I wrote it on there, so I don't
That's
have to remember.
Celsius.
Oh, the F is at the top. It's 500, 600 Fahrenheit, 300, 350, 340, something like that. Celsius.
With the rubber molds, is that like a special grade of rubber, or does rubber just have a
It-
lower,
it
a higher
is-
melting point
it-
than I thought?
Does have a higher, this is special, it is a two-part, stuff that you mix together for casting, for making casting.
That's actually silicone though.
Yeah, it's silicone.
Oh,
So-
That's silicone.
And, no, it's not cheap either, but it does a job that nothing else will do. Plaster of Paris will work, but you gotta make sure that it's dry. And then you know if it's locked in or not, because you can't get your model out if you didn't get it right on the parting line. Cutting this off. And I suspect if this was my 100th one, I'd be faster and smoother at it. But now let's see if we can open the mold. Alright, so we give this just a little bit tap. See if I can get a hold of it without disturbing too much. Paintbrush, there we go. Okay, I can see a couple spots right in here where I have had problems with it broke out. You got too high right there. I didn't see that when I was doing the initial set it in there, so it's not going to pour incredibly cleanly, but we'll see. If you look up in the ear, you see the ear? It picked up that detail of the inside of the ear there. So it picked up pretty good detail. Now, how are we going to get the metal into there? We need to run metal in there. So I'm just making a funnel here. Smooth that back so it doesn't take sand in. And I want roughly the same spot to take sand out of there. So I'm cutting a channel in. Since this is on the bottom, it'll be really easy to cut that off and then sand it smooth or file it, whatever tools I end up grabbing. I'm going to pack this down just a little bit so it doesn't carry sand into there. Brush that sand up out of there. Close my mold. So there's where we are.
You don't talc both sides before you pour it?
Talc both sides?
It's already
I don't think I need to. I
Okay.
don't care if
On
it's
sand, on rubber, we always do. On silicone, we always talc.
Oh.
It releases easier.
Oh, okay.
You won't rip, well, we're doing more detail than you are, but
Yeah.
you won't rip on your undercuts and stuff. You use
Ah,
silicone.
okay.
It's-
So, well, that will be something that I can try. I'm also checking here and I see that I have made a mistake. I did not get my screws to agree. So I can go back and change the position. I'll just widen this one out. Because I want that metal to flow in freely. So you're suggesting talc it here and then I won't get the sand sticking to the
Yep.
to the pour. That's a thought. Costs me.
No, you know, I'm not a sand casting guy, but we do that on all our silicone rubber molds.
That it makes sense. It costs me exactly that long try it. And the talc is thin enough, it's not gonna really add anything. I think that'll work. Now, I do wanna make the pour and one continues, I don't wanna do part way and stop and see if it's full. I want to, so,
Oh, you
since,
had also talked about venting.
oh, I should talk about venting, cause I sure don't wanna have to go back and redo. Okay, so venting, in fact, easiest way to vent is outside. And this is just a piece of stainless steel welding wire that was hanging around in my shop, so I'm gonna push the vent right there. It's on the jaw of the horse. It'll be easy to clean off. And let me put one more in here, just again out on a spot. That will let any air that gets trapped in there just go out. Now close it again, and we'll see. So I will definitely want as full a, wow, that's interesting. I've got enough oxidization on the top here. I just want to get it to where I can get my little ladle full. And the ladle's designed to pour right outside, and here we go. That's what I might consider a small event next time. Blue wire. Well, it did fill, and then I watched it come right out. See, I could have poured another one at 12 with 20. Yeah, so, but this gives you a chance to do one off of whatever models and check them. So, questions?
If you were not wanting to mess with that screw alignment problem, you could just probably cut it in one side of that mold.
I probably could, yeah. Yeah, because I do that a lot on these.
Right.
I've got just put this blank side here, and I probably could have done just one there. This is gonna be ugly, people.
I mean, it's not horrible, but it's
Well,
great.
I know where I made part of the mistake. Is I assumed that the clay would be pulling moisture out, or pulling heat out faster than it did. I caused this. I started to open the mold. It's like, oops, nope, close that back up again. So, one, mostly pewter. Oh, it's hollow because it was hot enough that it ran out the sprue. So the venting was a problem. But there you go. Come on. I'm not grabbing this. He's hot.
I was gonna ask about hollow versus solid.
So hollow in metal is usually done by like do slip casting. Pour it and then pour back out. Or if you have the inside of something, you can make a core that goes in, and then the core locks into your mold, it pours around it, and then you got to clean the core out. You're doing a lot of hollow stuff. And figuring out how do we get the core out.
Well, inserts.
Yeah.
And then like on our venting on now, instead of going out the side, we go out the
top.
I was gonna do this to get your metal not to run like you're doing. You go like this and then run it back up here. Well, see on that mold, I would run it. You wanna run it down that, cause your gap,
Yeah.
Or run it up, so the gas comes up and then back down, then you won't get this.
Do it, then you won't get
But on sandcast, I don't have a clue, but that's what I do on
Yeah.
those. And I do it in this here, so we don't have this to clean up on anything. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
that makes sense.
And if you run it up, the gas gonna come up, and then you go down, you'll stop in the middle and pull it out.
So, questions?